Sahara, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to finally have a chance to chat with you in person, kind of.
Yeah, same here. I was introduced to your work some time ago. I know many people in our community are already aware of your work with your teaching Ayurveda, with your actually travel to India many years ago as well to learn about Ayurveda. And then, of course, we have mutual friends in Nick Broadhurst and Melissa Ambrosini. So great to have you finally on the show. One of the reasons why I wanted you to come on and really chat with our community is about your new book that just came out, just released about a month ago, called Discover Your Dharma, a Vedic guide to finding your purpose. And this for you is kind of entering a new chapter, I think, in your teaching, in your life. And I would love for people to know more about this particular type of work, since I'm such a big believer in that it's great to have your health and it's great to have your overall wellness and get your body to a place where it should be. But then there's a next level to that. And that's what I hope to discuss with you here today. So once again, thank you for joining us. And let's start with, how did this book even begin to come about?
I believe that all healers first need the healing themselves. And I'm sure you see it so often with your patients and listeners. And for me, my journey began with my physical health. So when I was growing up, I was overweight. My mother was a refugee and my dad was an immigrant. So I didn't speak any English when I started school, and I just wanted to assimilate into American culture. And I couldn't, look like them or sound like them. So I started to eat like them. So I grew up eating all the junk food, which led to me having really bad asthma as a child, to the point that I couldn't play outside because I would break down into such bad asthma attacks growing up in Boston, where the pollen is really intense, that I was afraid of nature. I was afraid of the outdoors. It made me ill. And it wasn't until later on, when I was in high school, that I started to learn more about nutrition from like Cosmo magazine and, just trying to find ways to heal myself. And it brought me to yoga. So in college, I fell much more deeply into the practice of yoga, and that took me into its other sister sciences, including Ayurveda. And I was very interested, and my mother's lineage actually is Indian and my dad's is Persian. So I had heard of a lot of, Ayurvedic type of concepts, such as this is warming or cooling, et cetera, but I never really took it seriously. And at this time, raw veganism was the biggest phase, 10 years ago or something. And to me, it made sense. Well, if eating processed food is bad for you, then only eating raw foods should be good for you. And I became a raw vegan living in Boston. So at first I actually felt really great until, 8 months in, and I am shivering cold all the time. My body is just, basically not able to handle the cold winters there. I lost a lot of weight, a lot of my hair, and I stopped getting my period for 1 year, 2 years, almost 3 years of not getting my period. And at this point, I realized something deeper is going on. And I got different blood tests that told me my body basically stopped producing hormones. I was at a menopausal state when I'm 21 years old. So doctors told me, don't worry, you can do IVF in the future, but, maybe it wouldn't work either. So that's just it. They put me on hormone replacement therapy. I had really bad digestive issues, as you speak about, are so interconnected. So they put me on antidepressants for my digestive issues and a whole host of different, prescription medication. And one doctor actually told me to microwave a pint of ice cream every night and drink it to try to gain weight back. I'm like, great. So now I'll have diabetes, And intuitively, I just knew that there was something deeper going on, but no doctor had the time to sit with me long enough to, come up with this answer. So I began to take matters into my own hands, and that brought me back into understanding Ayurveda. And at first I was really suspicious, like, wait, rice? No way. Or ghee. And, I really didn't want to do the ghee, especially coming from that vegan background. But as I started to integrate more warming foods, grounding foods, spices, et cetera, I felt so much more grounded in my body. And not only did my physical health come into balance, but my mind began to shift. I could see an idea through. I could have enough heat, enough passion to, all these things I wanted to take off the ground. I was actually, okay, what is the game plan here? So I started to notice how much I was shifting as a human. And it was so fascinating to me because when I first read about the Vata archetype, it was like I was reading my autobiography. Like, from the of course, the bloating, gas, constipation, all of that stuff, but also imaginative, creative, idealistic, travel. And I had never felt so understood. So I became obsessed with learning everything I could about Ayurveda. And at this time, I had been traveling back and forth in India, teaching health and sanitation in the slums, and still a raw vegan in India, which is unheard of. They used to call me the cow because they had just never seen anyone eat raw greens like that before. And it's ironic that I went to teach them about health, and then I decided to sign up for Ayurveda school and learn about different Ayurvedic forms of healing, particularly nutrition and cooking, et cetera. So in this journey of my body healing, my hormones coming into balance, all of these physical things shifted, I started to think, well, what is the purpose of my life? Like, what do I really want to do? I was on track to become an international human rights lawyer. That's actually what I went to school for. I studied international development. And I thought that I want to help the world, and that's the way to help the world, to, sacrifice your life and help the most people. And in that stage of my life, I wasn't feeling fulfilled by working at the NGOs and feeling really disconnected from my creativity and these more Vata sides of myself. So I naturally wanted to begin sharing about my own healing journey. And that's how I began blogging, and then eventually studying Ayurveda for 2 years in India and wanting to share it, especially with young millennials like myself who had so many of the same issues as me. And that's when my journey of Dharma really began, of reprogramming and deconditioning and questioning all of these beliefs that I had, beliefs that you can't do what you love, or it's selfish, or to help people you have to sacrifice, or your parents sacrificed for you, so now you owe them your life. And, I was so passionate about Ayurveda. And when I told my family I'm going to write this book on it, they're like, wait, are you crazy? Like, you think you're going to write a book on Ayurveda? Like, you're going to end up homeless. You are delusional. You're taking advice from these hippies. And it was a really tough part of my life and years of my life. It wasn't like, and then I just wrote the book and here I am. Like, it was, taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and sometimes feeling so in alignment with, I've gone through these obstacles because it's my Dharma now to share them. And then also, who am I? Is follow your dreams something they tell you as a kid, and then you get older and it's like all bullshit. I'm the only one still believing in it. So it was really challenging for me because a deeper part of me knew I had a purpose, knew that these obstacles were preparing me to share that, but I also had no proof for it. And, that journey continued until I finally wrote that first book, got rejected by 30 different publishers who all echoed back the same fears I did, and kept going until eventually I was hired to write The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, which went on to touching so many people's lives, and walking up to Deepak Chopra at a conference and sharing the book with him, and him writing the foreword, and falling into this kriya, this flow when you're in alignment with your Dharma. And the question I kept getting from people now, 10 years later after all of this, was, how are you able to overcome just that stage of your life where you feel like you have this purpose, but you're not sure and you don't know where to go and you're confused and you don't want to make the wrong choice. And that's what inspired me to write Discover Your Dharma.
And that's, it's an amazing story. And I do agree with you on so many points where, I believe we all do have a calling. I really do believe that. And we don't always know what it is. And oftentimes it can come out of our worst circumstances, which is why when you're in it, you only see the bad. It's difficult. Like, I was sick for 10 years and if you asked me while I was going through it, would you give anything to get through this? And the answer would have been yes. But now, obviously, in hindsight, many years later, I can say it's the best thing that ever happened, because I didn't really have a purpose until that point. I didn't know that I did. But the other thing that you mentioned, and again, I see this all the time, is that people have big dreams and they have goals and they have hopes and they have aspirations, but they can't get there because they have no energy. And so, in my opinion, you need to always remember the mental part of it, but do what you can and everything you can in order to get your body to a good place. Because if the body is balanced, then you can allow everything else to come to fruition, because working 12 hours a day isn't that bad when you have lots of energy, and if you're living your purpose. So I want to get more towards that, but I'd love to hear too, what were some of your fears? Like, what was holding you back that your publishers that turned you down 30 times, felt the same way, and yet you somehow pushed through. So talk about the perseverance, but I'd love to hear what were some of your fears, because I'm sure many people have the same.
So I think one of my biggest obstacles was I was labeled as being confused. I was someone who had all these different ideas. And now I believe there's no such thing as confusion. Confusion is just the process of evaluating your own truth. But when I would tell my mom, oh, I'm thinking about this or I'm thinking about that, she's like, you are confused. You keep changing your mind, because that generation is like, you have a job and that's just what you do and no more questions asked. Right. So I put on this label of I'm a confused person. I don't know what I want. I keep changing my mind. So I don't want to take action on the wrong thing. And then I end up somewhere that I'm not supposed to be. So I see a lot of people now of that feeling like they're in a standstill because they want to have the 30-day map and the money back guarantee before taking any action. And that's not how your Dharma works. So that was definitely one of the biggest ones. And now I see the only way through confusion is action. You take action, you get feedback, and it further refines the journey. And, discovering your Dharma is like walking down the highway and you only have the flashlight. You can only see the next 6 feet ahead of you. So how are you going to wait until you see the end of the highway when your flashlight imagine if we knew everything that was going to happen in 2020, we would have been stuck. We would have thought I could never persevere through that. But here we are thriving, and so many sides of ourselves have come online that wouldn't have without these. So we can't know everything ahead of us. That would actually destroy the journey. So moving through confusion is a huge thing. I think for another thing for me, it was, how will I make money doing this? The fear of I'm going to end up homeless, or I'm going to end up, living an uncomfortable life. I had never seen an example of anyone who was genuinely in alignment with their Dharma, inspired by their life, and able to support the type of lifestyle they wanted. So I thought it was, maybe I take this job over here for money to give me time to then do the thing that I wanted. I just wasn't sure how it would ever integrate. And I see a lot of people feel the same thing. And now I share that there are 3 different pathways to get to your Dharma. The first one is the leap. The leap is, for example, maybe you're at a job that this does not serve me. In fact, it's depleting of my energy. I'm counting down the hours. I don't have any space left after this long day to even try to pursue different passions. Then that's the opportunity right there to take the leap, and we hear stories like this all the time. The person sells their belongings and move into their van. So the leap is one. The second is the transition. The transition is when you are maybe at a job or a place in your life that it's not horrible for you. You might not be totally fulfilled. However, you have enough energy within you to maybe start, taking different courses or researching different things, maybe taking a side job or internship until you can build that thing up enough for you to now take that transition. The third way is the accidental Dharma. And that is when you're not really seeking it, but it just finds you. So I share a story in the book that my friend's uncle was an engineer in his mid-50s, never really questioned anything past that. And the HR team at the corporation he worked at said everyone needed to choose an extracurricular. So he randomly, quote unquote, which I don't believe there are any coincidences, chooses pottery. And he gets his hands on that pottery wheel and he's like, this feels so amazing. I love the way the mud feels between my fingers. I need to start doing this more often. And he starts using his lunch breaks to get on that pottery wheel. And he starts making people in the office different plates and cups and bowls. And then they say, hey, can we buy these from you? He's like, okay. So he starts selling them. And now he is a full-time potter. So the first half of his life was being an engineer, and now it's being a potter. So he wasn't really seeking his Dharma, it found him. However, he could have just as easily had said, oh, I love my hands on this pottery wheel, but too bad I don't have time to do it. And that entire journey of his Dharma would never have unfolded. So I believe we all have elements of all 3. We all have those things tapping on our back saying, you're excited about this, come here, listen to that, follow this path. We also all have elements of transition, preparing what's coming next. And we all have elements of needing to take the leap. The leap may be 30 feet or 3 feet, but there's always going to be an element of leap in stepping into your Dharma. So for me now, understanding these, it would have helped me so much so when I was in that point of like not knowing what to do, a question that I actually ask people, which is funny because right before this, you asked me how did I write my book? But if you as a listener right now were to write a book, are you that person who would, kind of lock yourself in your room, write that book, spend the next month doing it and just completely devote yourself to this process? Would you B, maybe wake up an hour in the morning every day, write this book for an hour, or spend a couple hours on the weekends and be really consistent for a year? Or would you C, kind of just wait for the inspiration to hit you and see how it goes? So A is the leap. You are more likely to be that person to take that leap. You jump into things fully. B, the transition. You're someone that likes to slowly move into things, more of that kapha energy, more, feeling your way through. And then C is the accidental dharma, which, well, you're going to have to put a little bit of structure around that, because given all of the demands in today's world, it's really hard to just wait for inspiration to hit and expect that to become a book. So the invitation there is to maybe invite more of the other two energies into your life. So what is it like for you, Dr. Cabral?
Yeah, that's really great. As you're going through that, I'm thinking about it myself, because I love to just try to be more self-aware. It's like something I'm just big on, is to learn more about myself as I unfold in my life. And so I'm a transition process of gathering information. Like if you saw my wall in my office right now, it's about 35, 40 feet long, and it's just covered like a forensic wall of all different writings and drawings and diagrams. And I moved slowly through the mental process. But then one day, that's it. And I never look back. And once I commit to something, it's done within hours or days or weeks, and that's it. And so that's how I look at it, is like I will be slow in the process, and then when it's time, it's time. And so that's really how I look at it. It's funny that you mentioned that. So I guess I have multiple elements there.
Yeah. So you would be someone who maybe you would be doing the transition of, okay, what is it that I potentially could be interested in? What am I excited about? What is calling to me right now? Doing all of the research, and then take that leap when you feel prepared. Whereas some people, they have no idea what they want to do. They just take the leap and hope they'll find it along the way. And sometimes it works too. And some people, they know exactly what they want to do. Maybe they even have their business off the ground, but they're afraid of taking that leap. So it's noticing that in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's right. It's like, how calculated do you want to be? And some people, that goes back to that phrase, paralysis by analysis. Like eventually you need to take the leap, because as you already stated, you don't know the next 5, 6 steps until you take that first one. So what I'd like to say though, is that, for me, I listen to everybody. I love to learn. It's just, and I love to learn outside of my industry too. So I've been listening to people about who are trying to get their message out to more people. And basically they come up with, between their years of 20 years old and 40 years old, you're trying to find yourself, create your business, know what you're all about, all those different things. And then a lot of people from 40 to 60, it's that next 20 years, their self-expression is greater because they found what they're looking for. They know who they are, and now they want to share. And that's it's right on for me. I probably, I'm 40, in my 40s now, but before, I didn't start to share and go big until my, let's say 37, 38. And for me, I feel like it's a shift in Dharma. It's a greater calling now. I was seeing 20,000 people a year with my team in my practice. And again, don't get me wrong, I was very grateful for that. I was happy. It was very fulfilling, but then it stopped being. And then it's well, open more locations, or better yet, why not talk to people online? You've never done it before. You had the opportunity. Why didn't you do it? Now might be the time. So do you see, basically my question is, does Dharma have to be career for people, or could it be something more than that? They don't want it to be their career. They want it to be more some type of passion or nonprofit or calling in that way. Yeah.
So the word Dharma has over 16 different definitions in Sanskrit, but really one of the most ancient forms is your soul's purpose. It's the big reason why you are here. So it's so much more than just your career or your job or one role that you play, but I see it more as the frequency in which you carry, the energy, your soul's signature. And that is something that can then, if you look at it like a company's mission statement of, I'm here to bring beauty to this world, or I'm here to connect women to their hearts, or I'm here to blend ancient and Western cultures, et cetera. Then underneath that mission statement could be the services, and those could be jobs, roles, careers, projects you work on, etc. So your Dharma is much greater than that. It's more like the red thread that connects everything that you do. It's why you do it and how you do it. And it really can be expressed through so many different forms. Some of us have more of that Vata energy that it's going to be expressed in many, maybe you go through, you're an interior designer, and then you're a graphic designer, and then you're a florist, and then you're a wedding planner. But actually you were bringing beauty to the world through everything that you did. And you may be kicking yourself, I must not have a purpose. I keep changing my mind. But actually the Dharma was always there. The signature you were bringing to this planet was always within. Some people with the more Pitta energy is, this is the business plan, or this is the career, and I'm giving myself all to it. And it's very focused and disciplined and devoted. And just like the Pitta energy is, then sometimes it's like, okay, and we're done. This is complete. And I can speak about how I break it down into different chakras, but that Pitta energy is like, it's very all in. If you look at, yourself, for example, sounds like you have a lot of that Pitta energy of like, I'm doing this, and okay, this stage is done. I can feel the passion is not there. So let me move into that next iteration. Some people with more of that Kapha energy, it's through their relationships that they find their Dharma, through being a mother. That can really nurture them and activate something within their hearts that they would have never found before. Now, this may manifest into creating a baby formula or being on the parent-teacher association, or it may just be being in the experience of motherhood. However, I do believe that we all have a greater purpose outside of one role. I also see, coming from a family that no woman has ever worked, when your entire purpose is just being a mother, and then that child, grows up and goes away, you can be left feeling like you no longer have a Dharma. So it is important to let that activate your Dharma, but no, it is so much more than just that one role. So this also allows people to have permission to be them, because I know some people are like, this person does a membership and a course and a this and a that. And like, I just want to one-on-one coach people. Is something wrong with me? Am I not passionate enough? And it could just be that the doshas are different. The iterations of the Dharma are different. And when you were speaking about how you felt like after 40, it went into the stage of expansion and growth, I share these 5 stages of Dharma embodiment. So it's not just like, you're not living your Dharma and now you are, and it's done. It really is more like a mountain range. And that first summit, it may be the most difficult because you've never climbed a mountain before, and you got to, get the right shoes and the right tools, and you've seen the summit in your life. However, you get to the top and it's a mountain range, and it continues to unfold and unfold. It's more like a spiral than a linear line. In a spiral, we look at things, we look at our childhood, we look at our families, we look at our purposes, we look at all of these things, and then we come back to them and back to them and back to them with a deepening. So our Dharma will continue to deepen as we evolve and we get to know ourselves. And I break it down into these 5 stages, which also aren't linear, but can help people kind of see where they may be at in this moment. The first stage is just self-awareness, to feel something needs to shift. I can see the trajectory that my life is going and I don't like it. So something needs to shift. And that's just that self-awareness of, I'm going to make a change. Stage 2 is the self-improvement. How can I become my best self? Maybe it's through fitness or through, the motivational speaker circuits, or through, meditation, but it's more mental and physical. So like meditation for anxiety or for more focus or concentration. And most of the self-help or motivational speaker, personal growth are in this stage 2 of how can I be my best self? Now, this is very important. We can't bypass the mind and the body. We can't go into the 5D when we haven't mastered the 3D. We got to take care of what's happening in our physical realities. However, what naturally happens in this stage is we realize that we aren't a mind and a body to improve, but rather we are a soul to know. And that nothing was ever wrong with us. And we were never broken to begin with. We just didn't know the full scope of who it is that we are. So then we naturally become curious. How do I get to know myself on a deeper level? And this is the stage 3 of you could call it a spiritual awakening going underneath that surface. So this may have brought you to Ayurveda or astrology or so many different forms of healing out there. And it goes more into self-inquiry. So you're meditating more to understand yourself, to sit into that void. And you're getting to know yourself on a deeper level. And in this stage 3, a lot of people can feel very lonely. They can feel like no one around them can relate to what they're experiencing. And it can also feel very me against the world of, oh my gosh, how are these people okay with society being like this? They're all asleep. Like, we got to wake them up. And it can feel like this separation. I know when I was in my stage 3, I would write these poems that were like, we live in a box. The cubicles are a box. The cars are a box. Like, when will we get out of this box? And you can actually feel quite angry of like, why aren't people experiencing this depth that I'm feeling right now? And that's an important stage to be on. It feels like the veils have been lifted and you're seeing so much more than you ever knew as possible. Now, what naturally happens is you can't live in this state forever. It's quite stressful to be in. So you find the practices and the tools to support you. So maybe you go deeper into your breathwork practice or a certain type of meditation or deeper into Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, whatever resonates with you. And this brings us to stage 4, which is deepening into the self, finding our tools and practices and becoming more integrated with the world around us. So it's no longer me against this crazy world, but it's, okay, well, I chose to be born in this world, in this body at this time. So I must have some karma to work out here. So how can I, how can I understand myself and now use these gifts? So in stage 4, you are a sponge. You want to learn everything. You're learning this lineage and that teacher and this book. And then you find yourself starting to naturally share it. So maybe you're saying, well, Abraham Hicks said this, but the Buddha said that, and you're trying to find your way through it. So you may begin sharing it with your friends, your family, and you slowly start to find your own way of seeing things, your own unique magic sauce, right? Your integration. And in this development of what is my way of seeing the world, we slowly start to gain more confidence in sharing that. Again, that confidence can be with your friends or family. It could be online, clients, etc. And it doesn't even have to be related to spirituality. It could be your unique way of cooking or creating architecture or nursing. And that brings us into stage 5, which is that Dharma embodiment. And Dharma embodiment, it's really when your inner and outer realities match. There is no you at work and you outside of it, but really you're in a full frequency of who you are at all times. And the biggest focus that shifts is moving from me to we. So in the stages before, it needed to be about me. How can I improve myself, know myself, self-care, set boundaries, all of these things that are important to learn. But when you're in Dharma embodiment, it shifts into we. And the reason why you have these tools and practices are so you can be of service to humanity. And you're being filled by something so much greater than you. The energy that you spoke about, that you can work 12 hours a day because you're almost fueled by the cosmos that's running through you because you're in full alignment with why you are here. The universe wants us to be living our Dharma. It designed it to feel good. So that's when you hear stories of a mother lifting their, car off their baby or all these miraculous things. Like, these are possible for us when we are in alignment with our universal source. And whatever you want to call it, it's just that feeling of flow when you feel like a conduit of what is moving through you. It's not coming from you, but rather than through you. And in this stage 5, you notice that all areas of your life must come into alignment, because anything that's holding you back, whether it's a weird friendship that's like a kind of frenemy relationship or a romantic relationship or a home environment, etc., but anything that is holding you back from living your Dharma is holding you back from being of service to humanity. So areas of your life come into balance and you step into this higher embodiment of yourself, that you aren't just talking it, you are being it. Your frequency is emitting it, that it's so much more than the intellectual, but rather it's a body-based experience. And every single person has access to this. It's actually our birthright. It's why we are here. And in fact, it is the only way the world can come into balance.
No, that was really great. Really great. Because I think as someone that's seen many, many people in private practice, and you can actually see people in their different stages. And I can recognize that as I'm reading questions online. I say, oh, I get it. This person's like, I didn't associate it with a stage, but I said, okay, here's where they are in their development. Or what I would call it maybe before Dharma is like their enlightenment, or, their ability to kind of see the greater picture or the greater path. And I think it's an important point to reiterate is like, there doesn't have to be a specific like service, as you said, like you as the greatest florist in your community is providing beauty for that community, and you're providing joy and happiness. Like, it's not about any one specific thing. It's like, well, were you called to be a florist? No, like maybe you were a stay-at-home mom or dad, and then afterwards you became a florist, and you're still providing that nurturing, that caring. And I think that's an amazing way to look at it, because I think there is an evolving of you. You weren't meant to ever, at least in my opinion, like you weren't meant to stay static. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too, is like, I don't know that there is a finish line. Do you believe that there's a finish line for growth?
No, I think it's just that spiral that continues to forever unfold. And the further in alignment with our truth we become, the more our Dharma reveals to us. And then those former layers that we were holding onto will naturally shed away. So I see your Dharma as it's like your naked body, but we have put all these layers on. The hat is the societal conditioning, and the jacket is the familial ancestral stuff, and the shoes are, well, you're never going to make it doing this. And then we're the snowman of layers, and we think it's our body. We think, oh, well, this is who I am. I can't do that stuff. And then as we let go and unravel and decondition, we remember the truth of who we already have been. And that's why it's not so much about even finding your Dharma. It's more about remembering it. And oftentimes it's those same things you love to do as a child, or why you love to do those things. So maybe you just love to play the piano, or you love to create skits or run around outside. To first ask yourself, what brought me joy as a child, and then why? So maybe you love to play the piano because your grandmother was sitting in the chair next to you, and you love to just let her feel nostalgic and connect to her heart, to give her that experience. Or maybe you love to play outside because you love to be in your body and be connected to earth and connect with other people and feel like you have a sense of camaraderie. So looking at those things as children, we're such natural expressions of who we are. And the more that we can align with the things that bring us joy, the more energy we have, and the more that we can create sustainable change. I think so many of us, we want to change the world, and then we assign ourselves to doing something that we don't even like to do. And then we don't end up completing it. So if we actually are devoted to changing the world, to creating this new paradigm that we all want to be a part of, it needs to be felt in the heart. It needs to feel good. And that's the only way it will be sustainable.
I love the tip too about going back to childhood and, what did you love to do? What were you most interested in? And for me, it was always adventure and discovery. I mean, I always wanted to be every kid goes through they want to be a professional sports athlete, all those different things. And then, you start to get a little older, and then, yes, I might be a pitta mindset, but I'm inside of more of a vata-based body, and that's just not going to happen. That's okay. But I was always into discovery. I always wanted to be an archaeologist. And you might say, well, what does that have? What am I doing? It has nothing to do with archaeology, but in a way, if you start to peel it back, it does. I mean, I went overseas in India and Sri Lanka and China and Europe. And I was on a quest. I was on a search for information, for truths that had been lost. And, how could you bring them back? So that's why I think that people just need to keep peeling back that onion, or start to take off those articles of clothing, as you said. But how do we move in that direction if family isn't supportive, or you already have a spouse and you have children, you've got bills? Like, where do we begin to move? How do we begin to silence all the critics?
Yeah, well, I think a really good tool to help you have more confidence and yes, this is who I am, are the Dharma archetype. So archetypal work has been really helpful for me to see myself in something greater than me. So when you speak, I'm like, researcher archetype for sure. Like all of the things you love to do as a child and that you're doing now, it's through that researcher lens. So I broke them down into these 9 Dharma archetypes, which are really helpful. So for example, people who are the teacher, which you also have, they're going to go through life learning lessons and transmuting them by teaching them to other people. So maybe you're not doing that currently, but you can remember as a kid, you grasped the concept if you were teaching it to one of your peers, or, you feel alive when your friends are asking you for something, you're explaining to them a topic. That is the teacher within you. The reason why you're coming alive is because you're designed to do that. So for the teacher, maybe it's in a small scale. You teach things to your friends. Hey, I learned how to weave macrame. I'll do a free, macrame night for you guys. Or maybe it is in your job, you offer, hey, Friday night, I would love to teach something on Zoom to everyone in the office, just stepping into more of those teacher-like abilities. And then when you're in that vibration and doing what it is that fuels you, the next step reveals. Maybe people say, can you do this every Friday? Or maybe you're like, wow, I should record this and put it online, but you're never going to figure it out mentally. You just got to step into it. Now, another very common archetype, which I think with a lot of your listeners, is the nurturer. So the nurturer, their dharma is really here to care and connect. They want to dive deep with people, hold space, listen. So thinking of that Oprah energy, why do we love Oprah so much? It's because she can sit on a chair next to you and just say, child, what are you feeling? And take you so much deeper into your truth and listen than you could have ever on your own. And sometimes we think, nurturers means I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom. I mean, look at Oprah. She could be at the Staples Center with tens of thousands of people around her, but she's still sitting in that chair having that deep conversation. So if you are that nurturer, how can I create more experiences in my life that I can be nurturing? Maybe it's, I actually just bought caterpillars and raised butterflies, and that was like a fun little side project I did because it was so fun for me to watch them turn into their chrysalis and now they're butterflies and I'm like feeding them with sugar water. And, maybe you do a little project like that and that fuels you to the next step. Or maybe you offer your friends a Reiki session or, different modalities that are coming through you, and that can transition into it being a career or not. Another very common archetype is the visionary. So the visionary is here to see the new paradigm. They're very future oriented. They are inspirational. Their gift is their words, their charisma, their ability to take people to a higher perspective. So maybe you are someone who loves to share, who loves to maybe be on camera or be on stage. You're that friend everyone texts when they're looking to see something from a higher perspective. So if you're noticing that and that energy is making you feel alive, maybe you can start a YouTube channel, or you can, send inspirational voice memos to your community, or you can go to coaching school or do something else that allows you to be in that visionary archetype. And there are many different archetypes in there: the warrior, the researcher, the entertainer, the activist, the artist. So it's finding ways that feel accessible for you right now to sit into these archetypes. And then from that energy, letting it reveal what is the next action to take.
And I think a lot of the times people are going to say, well, I have no idea which one is me, or maybe I'm multiple. Like I can't begin to tell you the amount of people who think they're a tridosha. And it's just like, well, yeah, because we all have a little bit of those, right?
Yeah. They're like, I think I'm the only one who's a tridoshic. Yeah.
It's like every person is, and it's obviously quite rare, but to be an even balance, although we all contain some parts of them. So how do we cut down on this confusion? How do we begin to, I think in general, everybody needs to just get out there, as you're saying, like you need to just you need to experiment to figure these things out. But what are some different things that people can do to begin to just kind of answer that question?
Yeah. So I have an assessment in the book that actually lets you see the order of these archetypes, because yes, we are all 9, but in varying amounts. You can't actually be all of them at the same, right. Your nurture and your warrior can't be at equal amounts at the same time. It just won't work out. You'll be like fighting yourself and then nurturing yourself right after. So the beauty is we can all step into them. Sometimes I'm a warrior. Sometimes I'm a visionary. Sometimes I'm this and that. But what is the one that's feeling really alive for you right now? So you can do the assessment. I also have kind of a condensed version on dharmaarchetypequiz.com that will tell you your top 2. And again, it can shift throughout your life. I find that your top two archetypes tend to stay with you your entire life. The ones in the middle are the ones that kind of shift and move around. And then your last one tends to be your like shadow aspect that you don't want to step into, where the most growth is. So for example, my top two are visionary and teacher. My last one is warrior. So before I didn't want to do the confrontation. I didn't know how this business stuff worked. But the more I step into my warrior and become friends with my internal warrior, the more I'm actually able to create a container for my visionary and my teacher to thrive. Does that mean now I should, become a CrossFit teacher? No. However, I know that I can step into my warrior if need be. So looking at what is the most active within you. For example, this quarantine for me, my entertainer archetype came online more. It was one I hadn't really, as a kid, I liked to do improv, but I never thought it to be any sort of career. But because I had extra time, I got on TikTok. I started making up these little skits of talking to my spirit guides, et cetera. And I found so much joy of being in this entertainer archetype. Does that mean I'm going to become an actress now? Probably not. However, I found a new layer of my Dharma from stepping into it. So there's definitely work to be done in each. But if you are confused and you don't know where to go, look at your top two. If you are also someone who's like, I'm not really sure what it is that I'm good at, a really good question to ask yourself is, if you had a text message from a friend that said, I need your advice on something, what do you think that question would be about? So for you, Dr. Cabral, from a friend, I need your advice on something. What do you think they're going to ask you for?
Yeah, it's going to be anywhere I go, something to do with their health for sure. Yeah. Always nutrition, health, those types of things. And a lot of people will say, don't you get tired of answering those questions? And the answer is no. And I think, obviously, after talking with you, that's because I'm living my Dharma. Like, if you ask me a question, you're basically just asking me about life. It's through my lens, and this is who I am. And so there's no separation for me of what I do in my life. People are like, well, how do you separate business and work and life? It's not. It's like when I go home at night, I'm having dinner with my two daughters, and I'm teaching them about nutrition. And then before bed, we're reading like little guided meditation cards. And it's just like, it's all the same. And so I think it's a great thing to integrate it all if you can. So that was a long-winded question to your
I love that.
Your question.
And it's a beautiful example of you're living in that stage 5, that Dharma embodiment, where there's no separation between the outer and inner you. You're not getting off this podcast and like, I'm going to go look up UFC. That's my real passion. Maybe one day that could be the next iteration. The warrior archetype comes online, but you are living that expression right now. So oftentimes what our friends come to us for, our friends see us as the expert in this thing. Maybe it is relationship advice, or maybe it's, I need help branding something, or how do I make my in-laws feel at home for this dinner party? You are that person that they're coming to. So there's probably something within you that is making them think of you. So look at what it is that you are naturally good at. Our gifts, our skills are guiding us to our Dharma, our superpowers, those things that maybe people compliment on us that we don't maybe take seriously. Like, for example, for you, I'm sure people tell you, you have such a way of taking complicated matters and making it simple. Right? That's a superpower that you have of getting all this information. And now here it's digestible and palatable for you. So that's, one of your dharmic gifts. For someone else, it could be, you have such a way of making me feel seen and heard. For someone else, it could be, you have such a creative mind. How do you come up with these ideas? Or, we hear these things throughout our lives and we think maybe everyone gets this exact same compliment, but it's not true. A question you can ask your friends is, when have you seen me at my best? Maybe they saw you at your best when you were singing during karaoke. Doesn't mean you're going to be a singer, but when you're in that spotlight, something in you comes alive. Or maybe they saw you at your best when you were teaching your first yoga class or whatever else it is. So often looking at what our friends come to us for, what people see in us, if we have no idea within ourselves, and then looking at ourselves in these greater Dharma archetypes. And then the truth begins to come. We're like, you know what? I am really good at this. I am pretty good at that. And then we can, begin to get more honest with ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so when people have, answer those questions, this is what people come to me for. This is, what naturally I'm pretty good at. Maybe another one would be, what would I do if I didn't even need the money? Like those types of things, like moving in the direction, like what then is the next step? Like, where do we begin to move from there to saying, okay, I'm not convinced, but I believe that this is the direction I should be moving. Is there a plan we should be following?
Yes. So I am a Capricorn, so I am all about a plan. And I actually have this concept in my book called the Dharma Blueprint. So that is now, what action point do I take with knowing this about myself? And it's this 5-step process that you go through of looking at your Dharma archetype or archetypes that are most alive in you, the mediums that express through you. Is it writing, speaking, formulating, drawing, weaving? What are the mediums coming through you? What are you excited about? Excitement are breadcrumbs guiding us to our Dharma. So what are you wanting to Google search or have a conversation about? What is that thing that you're like, please bring that up because I want to talk about this? Those are guiding you. It's there for a reason. Excitement is the ignition underneath the flame. It's guiding you to that next step. So what am I excited about right now? And you can make a list of everything you're excited about, and you'll probably see some patterns of, okay, it's all related to healing or nature or technology, et cetera. Now, the 4th is, what are obstacles I have overcome or helped others overcome? So maybe you've gone through health issues or a divorce or not knowing how to dress or moving to a new country. There's no obstacle is too big or too small. And if you're not sure what you've overcome, what have you helped someone else overcome? Sometimes people find their dharmas from helping a parent go through cancer. And that's what makes them become very curious about health and nutrition and healing, but it wasn't for them. Or maybe it's through, helping someone go through social anxiety or whatever else. So an obstacle you've overcome or helped someone else overcome. An example I share in the book is this woman, she had really bad social anxiety. She couldn't really read facial characteristics and facial cues. So she started to make these flashcards for herself. Okay, this means they're excited, but this means they're nervous, and teaching this for herself. And she started to share it with, fellow acquaintances. And they're like, this is really good. You should put this on a blog. I would read this. So she put it on a blog, and before you knew it, she had thousands upon thousands of people like, thank you for this. I've been struggling with this for so long. And then later wrote a book and has courses and helps so many people with social anxiety. And this has turned into her dharma. So obstacles are the 4th thing. And then the 5th thing is the superpower, that, secret essence that you bring to the table. And it could just be, I have a really good eye for design, or I have a really great way of connecting with people, et cetera. So you put these 5 different aspects together and then look at, now, what are some actionable steps I could take? Is it, okay, I will write my book proposal, or I will apply for a job that includes my creativity, or I will look into taking a course about digestive health, et cetera. And I find it really helpful when you see these different aspects of yourself coming together. It can pinpoint a really clear direction we can move into. And again, that doesn't mean it's the end goal, but it gives us that next step.
That's great. And I always find it interesting, like the woman who had difficulty reading people's expressions, maybe lacked a little bit of that intuitive instinct, and thought it was just her, right? It's always like, we always believe that even something that we're good at, or that we have to struggle with, that it's always unique to us. And the truth is that if you have it, there's not probably just a handful of other people. There's most likely millions of other people struggling with that as well, or could use your advice. And then, of course, look at this woman now goes on to write a book, courses, all these different great things. So, a bit of advice I always try to share with people is, you can start small, but you don't need to play small. Like, you can eventually get out there, and most likely, again, everyone's always worried about the critics. Family is one, but then just also being online, and there will always be critics. Like, that's just the way that it is. But there's going to be a lot more people, most likely, than you're helping, than people who are actually critics. I actually don't find, if you're trying to do good work, there's not that many critics. There's really not.
How dare you heal people's digestion? Shame on you. I want everyone to have IBS.
Exactly. And people will always just be like, they'll always say the negative or the opposite just to be a contrarian, and that's okay. But let me ask you, how have you helped yourself and other people overcome critics, or I guess really it's just your ability to deal with critics and outside forces?
It is something that holds so many of us back. And especially, I think, this past year, I just heard so many people like, I was going to put myself online and now I'm afraid because of all this cancel culture stuff happening. And it can be very, very crippling. And I would be lying if I said I still don't care. You know, it is a thing that's always alive and active for people. We naturally are biologically predispositioned to care what other people think about us, because if back when we lived in villages, if everyone hated us in the village, we would no longer have access to food and shelter. So the difference is our village today is 7 billion people who we never even meet in person, but our minds still think, oh, someone doesn't like me, therefore I may not be safe. So a mantra I'm telling myself always, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. Even if the whole world comes against me on the internet, I am safe. I'm here. My physical body is okay. So it's, going into that fear, I think sometimes we're like, screw the haters. It's like, no, go into what's that worst case scenario? What are they going to do? And you're going to survive that. I think also in my own journey, I needed to go through my own family disapproving me and not believing in me and even trying to bring me down as that practice round for me to then, take it into a public sphere of, if I can believe in myself when the, people who raised me don't, how now I'm going to be able to, withstand a Instagram troll who, by the way, the people who are taking their time to message or comment you something that they don't like about you are actually the people most inspired by you. It takes a lot of time I wish I could comment on everyone I'm inspired by. That takes time.
Right.
So if they're going out of their way to send you this long message, they're very inspired by you. You're a reflection of what they have not met within themselves. They're so triggered that you have activated something that they have not had the courage to yet. And you're showing them what's possible for them. And they would rather take you down than to step up. So, don't take that personally. If anything, it's the greatest compliment you could ever get. And a quote that I read too by Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, is, no one ever made a statue of a critic. We spend all of our lives focusing on this critic. Do people remember the critics' names? Throughout history, the people who made the biggest impact, from Gandhi to Mother Teresa, had the most number of critics. So if you actually don't have a hater yet, or anyone criticizing your work, you probably aren't stepping up into your Dharma enough. When you're actually shaking up the new paradigm, that is when the people come, because you're making them re-question their truth. So don't worry if you don't have any haters yet. There's still enough time. You could go out there, find them, and that's how okay, I'm shaking up the paradigm right now.
Without a doubt. No, I totally agree. And, I had the same with family as well. And part of it is, even if they're probably sometimes they're well-meaning, not always, but they have safety and security-based issues. And if you're breaking the trends of what the family has always done, they don't know what that outcome will be, and they're worried for your safety, for your security. It's all those types of things. And I simply looked at it as, this is just one more test. You are going to be tested in life along the way. I don't know if it's the cosmos, the universe, whatever it might be, but you do have to show that you are worthy of reaching that level and of really achieving your Dharma, of saying, I'm going to encounter obstacles, and when I do, I may not have all the answers, but I'll figure it out. And I think this is just a beautiful way to live. You don't have to know it all. So as we're pulling this together, people could put this off for the rest of their life, right? You can put off your calling. I'll look at it next year. Right now, I've got to pay the bills, or right now I've got to deal with my kids at home. I'm homeschooling them because schools are closed, whatever it might be. So in my opinion, I believe that this is one of the best times to ever begin. And the reason is that you have unlimited resources. We're on Zoom right now. We have phones that are 4K and film video. We can type out. Nobody wants to read, when they go in an Instagram post, you don't need to write 1,500 words. You can write 6 sentences. You can take a beautiful photo. I just think it is a great time to begin to live your Dharma, or at least explore it. But I'd love to hear your viewpoint, since you obviously wrote the book on this.
Well, I think if you're listening to this conversation this deep in, you are ready. Your excitement is there. You're if you're subscribed to Dr. Cabral's podcast, like I guarantee your Dharma is already activated within you. You know, the average person is not even listening to this. So there's no coincidence if you're listening to these words right now for a reason, that thing that you're thinking about doing, that you're excited about, that you're questioning about, this is the reminder for you to just go for it. And yes, there will always be another thing we need to do and another obstacle and another month that we're fully booked, but next month I have time on my schedule, and that's going to keep happening forever. And what if you prioritized, you know, a Zoom call with yourself as you would a Zoom call with someone else? You know, if someone else needs something, we're so quick to, okay, make it work. I got to show up. It's 9 a.m. They need me here. But when it comes to ourselves, we let ourselves go. The greatest regret that people have on their deathbed is, I wish I spent more time doing what I loved. So if you're not sure, the invitation is to begin going through that quest, begin getting to know yourself, do the Dharma archetype quiz, learn about your doshas, learn about human design, astrology, whatever is resonating with you. And then just take one thing and begin taking action. It doesn't mean you have to take action on all of the things right now, or if you take action on one thing, that means the other things will not happen. But when you see one thing through, you take it through the Vata stage, the idea, the Pitta, the execution, and the Kapha reevaluation. You actually see it through. You shift fundamentally as a person. You gain more experience, more nuance, more ability to manifest ideas to life. And that will actually make everything else that you're going to birth through much easier. So one thing that it is that you're inspired to do, maybe it is writing your screenplay, or learning how to play the guitar, or just applying for a job that you can, you know, do more customer service stuff, whatever it is that's resonating for you. Just this week, choose one actionable step you can take, as big or as small, and then do that again next week, and do that again next week. And then in 1 year, please write to us and let us know how your life has shifted. I think sometimes we wait for this, like, you know, momentous moment where like God tells us exactly what to do. And it's like, we're always listening, you know, we're always getting that instinct, that nudge. So just take small steps and small points of action. And also, back in the day, we had to go to the library and look up the catalog of things and like find where they were. Like, we have this huge gift of the internet, which is no coincidences that our soul chose to incarnate at this time with this tool available for us. So whatever it is you're interested in, you have access to it right now. Dive into it. And focus too. Turn off your social media and your email and all those things. Give yourself maybe 1 hour a day or week or whatever of devoted, focused time to understanding your Dharma and understanding yourself. And I guarantee you, in 1 year, you will be somewhere that you could have never expected before.
That's amazing. Yeah, without a doubt. And I can't recommend enough picking up the book again, once again, is Discover Your Dharma, a Vedic guide to finding your purpose. And you can use it like a workbook. And so you can really take your time, go through it. I always recommend reading 10 pages a day of whatever book, again, you feel is your calling. So really, over the next 30 days, you can finish Discover Your Dharma. You can use it like a workbook. And I think as you start to go through the book, the next step will unfold. And that's what really this is all about. It's like, okay, this is going to be my next action step. It doesn't mean you're going to be doing that 5 years from now, but it means it's what you need to do today in order to get 5 years from now. And I don't know if you've ever had it, but I never had that great awakening one day. It just happened. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It was small steps. I talked about it in the beginning. I got certified as a nutritionist, then a personal trainer in college. I was making money. I was helping people, then a certified strength and conditioning specialist. And I just kept moving and moving forward. I had greater interest. And I think it's, again, I always go back to it, but it's more of an unfolding rather than like one moment of inspiration.
It's the same way for me. And I think that sometimes we use this like idea of this like one moment awakening to actually not take responsibility of, well, that moment hasn't happened for me. So I'm waiting for, you know, the lightning to strike me. And take that responsibility. You are co-creating your reality. You know, we think of law of attraction, but action is a very big part of the attraction. Yes. So take action towards what it is you want, consistent action. And most of my greatest realizations have been in hindsight of, oh, that moment was actually what changed my life, or that was actually an aha experience, but I didn't know it then. I only knew it once I was able to evolve past it.
And I'll add one more thing to this as someone that, had to overcome some serious illnesses, and one of them being Addison's disease, which is a complete lack of energy because you have no cortisol. One of the things that I think got me to that next level was beginning to be inspired. And what happened was that inspiration, as you spoke about, gave me a renewed sense of energy that my adrenals, my body didn't necessarily embody, but my mind did. And then my mind fed my body. And then in turn, my body was able to do what it was supposed to do, which then fed my mind. So if you're lacking the inspiration, the energy to even move forward because you think you're already overwhelmed, begin to then feed your mind, begin to then look at your purpose. And I'm telling you, I wake up every day with lots of energy. Some nights I don't get sleep. And yes, I take care of my body, but it's also because I'm inspired about the work that I do, about the life that I live. It's not just my work, it's my life, it's my family, it's all these different things. So I think it does work both ways, right? Our psychology affecting our physiology and our physiology affecting our psychology. And so don't wait is basically what I'm saying.
Yes, I love that so much.
How can people connect with you online? I know that you're active online on social media. What's the best place?
Yeah. So my Instagram is I am Sahara Rose. And if you're interested in getting the book on my website, you can actually submit your receipt, and for free, you'll get my Discover Your Dharma meditation, embodiment practice, and tapping. So that is over at iamsahararose.com/Dharma. And the Dharma archetype quiz is over at dharmaarchetypequiz.com, which is also all available. If you go on my website or Instagram, you'll find all the links there.
Excellent. We will link all of those up to date in the show notes. It was a real pleasure having you on. Hopefully we'll be able to connect again real soon in the future.
Thank you so much.